Good morning, friends. Hope all of you are doing well and preparing for your exams and all. Yeah, we will continue with our essay we were doing with this knocking at the gate in Macbeth, okay, by Thomas de Quincey. So in this essay, basically this is a psychological essay, what kind of a feeling this knocking incident creates in the mind of the writer and its psychological and philosophical underpinnings. So actually in this drama by Shakespeare, this Macbeth, in the second act, scene 2, there is King Duncan is killed by Macbeth and Lady Macbeth in the castle, in Macbeth's castle. So after that killing, there comes a knocking sound, means Macbeth and Lennox are knocking at the gate. Means that sound created some kind of a psychological effect in the author. So he is talking about that experience from the childhood itself. He began to be preoccupied or attracted by this knocking sound. He was always thinking like this has something to do, okay, there is something special. He didn't pass over it simply a knocking. So that is what he is talking about. As an introduction, he says in human mind there are different faculties, and sometimes some faculties overrule the other one. He is giving an example of understanding and vision. Whenever we see some single dimensional picture or something, picture of a building, we understand that as a four-dimensional building. Our mind is making up as a building. So there is a contradiction between understanding and the act of seeing. So he says, this kind of contradictory experience of different senses has to be taken seriously. The same is happening in the knocking incident also. People who passes by this kind of incident as simply irrelevant thing, okay, or which is quite normal thing, here Dickens actually thinks about it. It has some effect. For example, he analyzed the Radcliffe Highway murder, okay, which is staged by Mr. Williams. So he says that in that, once watching that drama as well, some guy came up and he told De Quincey that this man has created a wonderful art. There is something wonderful to do with this creation. Okay. So even then De Quincey is trying to he has been grappling with this question. Now he came closer, and his analysis is that this knocking has a lot to do with the common psychology of human being. Okay, it separates the world. That is what we are going to look at it today. So in the second paragraph, okay, in the last paragraph, the last part of the last paragraph, he says that we always pay attention. We are always overruled by the sympathy. Okay, sympathy towards the murdered or person. So he says instead of paying some attention to the murdered person, we have to pay some little more or a closer attention to the murderer who is doing this job of killing. Okay, so their mind is a very complex phenomenon with jealousy, ambition, vengeance and hatred, and that will create a hell within. That is what I quote from De Quincey. So he says we have to consider this hell rather than we have to scholastically or psychologically we have to pay enough attention to this phenomenon rather than having a general sympathy. So he says in the next paragraph where it starts in Macbeth, for the sake of gratifying his own enormous and teeming faculty of creation, Shakespeare has introduced two murderers. Here we have two murderers in Macbeth. Okay, actually Macbeth invited king to his castle and they are celebrating a party, a huge victory Macbeth had, or king had. Okay, so they are celebrating, and Macbeth got promoted, he got some kind of promotion. So in between, Lady Macbeth is pursuing Macbeth to kill the king in the silence of the night, and so that he can be the next king. So that is the conspiracy happening, and they are killing King Duncan. Okay, so that, that is a complex, even though I have told it in even one or two sentences, it's a complex phenomenon. What are the feelings that undergoing in the mind of Lady Macbeth and Macbeth? These are important things to pay attention to. Okay, so yeah, the dialogues and soliloquies, right? Dialogues means a conversation between two characters in a drama, but at the same time soliloquy is a character is talking to himself. Means, as why a character is talking to himself. Whenever a character is talking to himself, the author is trying to reveal, or author is trying to elaborate the complex feelings that is undergoing in the mind of the character. So in order to elaborate or to showcase the process, the mental feelings that is happening in the character, traditionally writers use these soliloquies. Now we have something called stream of consciousness method, the stream of thought in a character. Okay, it has something to do with this soliloquy as well. Now he says, now I solicit the reader's attention. Okay, now I solicit reader's attention. If the reader has ever witnessed a wife, daughter, or sister in fainting fit, he may chance to have observed that most affecting moments in such a spectacle is that in which the sigh and stirring announces the recommencement of suspended life. So that is the main point. So he says that this knocking sound, once a murder happens, there happens a suspension of normal life. Then once this knocking is over, we are moving forward to a normal life. He is giving some other examples also, like once a politician got assassinated, everything comes to stand still. Okay, no movement, everything is blocked. For example, if a politician got assassinated, then what happens? The city becomes in a deadlock. Nothing is happening, everything is closed, people are nowhere there in the street. Okay, so but after a moment, there is a rolling sound of some vehicles, and some the shutters are opening up. Okay, the shutter of the different institutions and shops are opening up. So there is a kind of recommencement of suspended life. The life got suspended when this cruel act of murder happened. From that death-like stillness, that moment when the suspension ceases and going on of human life suddenly resume. All action in any direction is best expounded, measured, and made apprehensible by reaction. Now, if we adopt this thing, if we apply this principle, okay, when something got, somebody got assassinated, then life got suspended, life is in suspension, then after some times there is, noise are coming up and life gets normalized, people behave in a normal way, people began to ride their cycle or, vehicles through the road. Okay, so if we, here, the returning of the human heart and entrance of a fiendish heart was to be expressed and made sensible. they are transfigured. Lady Macbeth is unsexed. Yeah, this here actually, Shakespeare is referring to Lady Macbeth's soliloquy, where Lady Macbeth says, his soliloquy means he is simply giving a prayer or talking to herself. He prayed that unsex me here. Unsex me means Lady Macbeth belonged to feminine gender, so she sometimes say there is a larger philosophical debate is, sex is always, whenever you are talking about, sex, it is all about, femininity, okay? That kind of a philosophical debate is there. You will find out in more details in Bodies That Matter, or Gender Trouble more specifically. Judith Butler is discussing that point. Anyway, leave that. So here, unsex me. Now, she wanted to say that this heinous crime of killing and doing this kind of job is not something, fit for a lady. So she wanted to be unsexed. Okay? She wanted to be unsexed. In other sense, in other place, she says this dialogue happens in Act 1 and Scene 5, I guess. And in other place, she says, yeah, look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. Okay, means she tells Macbeth that you look like a innocent flower. Don't try to be innocent. She is actually pursuing or motivating Macbeth to do this heinous crime. You don't be like a simple, innocent, beautiful flower, but be the serpent, okay? Be the venomous serpent under that flower, okay? Means her mind is a complex flex of this kind of feeling, this kind of complex emotions like, vengeance. And she asks Macbeth to do this kind of heinous crime. The murder, in continuation in the next, after couple of lines, the murder and the murderer must be insulated, cut off by an immeasurable gulf from the ordinary tide and succession of human affairs, locked up and sequestered in some deeper recess. Okay, means here he's actually talking about that, that mental process happening in the murderer. Okay, so by showcasing this incident of murder, Shakespeare is not simply, simply telling a story, is actually exposing the human mind, the process that is happening, what we call this kind of the complex phenomenon that is happening in the mind of a murderer, okay, a character. He's exposing a character, he's building a character. Then in the last paragraph, he says that he is praising Shakespeare. He says that this Macbeth is not something, usual thing. It has a complex capacity. It is a complex work of art which has to be admired, which has to be read and reread and staged and then enacted everywhere. It has something relevant, even though it is written in 16th or 17th century. Still, it has relevance. It is very much it represents the human mind. O mighty poet, means Shakespeare. He's addressing Shakespeare. Thy works are not as those of other men, simply and merely great work of art. Your work is great work of art, but are also like the phenomenon of nature. Your work is simply like a phenomenon in the nature. Phenomenon means something, that happens in the nature, like the sun, the sea. The sun and the sea, these are unique things. The stars, they are unique things. So your work is also unique like a sun or a sea. That is what he wanted to say, because he is writing this, even merely this knocking sound and some of this soliloquy, some of the dialogues, if you take, it has a wonderful artistic perfection that makes this thing appealing and attractive for readers of every age and stage. Yeah, be studied, like frost and snow, rain and dew and hailstorm and thunder, which are to be studied with entire submission of our own faculties. In the perfect faith, in them there can be no too much or too little, nothing useless or inert, but that the farther we press in our discoveries, the more we shall see proof of design and self-supporting arrangement. Means he says that Shakespeare's these writings are simply great phenomenon which cannot be compared. It has a unique qualities like the sun and the star and the sea. So it has to be studied by, by applying entire faculty of human mind. You cannot study something merely by applying your, visionary faculty, your faculty of seeing or your faculty of hearing. Means the sound image, that the knocking is a sound thing, right? That sound image that, invites into a complex phenomenon of psychological process, and by extension that reveals the great writer. So you have to pay some closer attention to the last paragraph as well. Okay, so this is the thing. So if you have, I don't want to extend it more than 16 or 17 minutes, that's why I'm just stopping here. So let's wind up, and if you have any doubts or queries, you could ask me. Okay, yeah, in the WhatsApp group you could ask me. Okay, that's fine. Okay, I know this is a little bit complex essay, but try to give 1 or 2 readings and think about it. Okay, yeah, bye.